what you're doing, what you're doing with, when you're creating something, learning the process, learning things about it, that's all so important. It's to constantly keep learning.
Welcome to the Passion Behind the Art Show. It's all about diving in with individuals to learn the story behind their passion. It's your host, Darold.
What's up? Guess what? It's another week, another amazing guest, and another opportunity for me to bring you value through someone else's story. But before we jump into this week's episode, I just want to let you know that our Patreon page is up and running, finally. And if you're not familiar with Patreon, it's basically a way to support a specific endeavor that you're interested in. And of course, the endeavor that we're talking about right now is Passion Behind the Art, the podcast. So I'd really appreciate it if you would support the podcast through our Patreon page. All you need to do is just go to passionbehindtheart.com and look for the Patreon tab, and it will take you directly to the page. This would mean the world to me and everything that I'm doing in regards to the podcast. A large percentage of what I do in regards to the podcast, as a matter of fact, all of it is free. And I would really appreciate you if you could just help support the podcast with as low as $2. Nothing too crazy. $2. And of course, there's various tiers you can support with more, and the more you support, the more incentives you get. So just go to passionbehindtheart.com and check out our Patreon page. This would help me out a lot. There will also be a link in the show notes. So without further ado, let's jump into this week's episode. Well, I am beyond excited to have an amazing illustrator on the Passion Behind the Art show, Dave Mottram, on the show. David, welcome, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Dude,
appreciate it.
Let's just jump into it. I want to hear this story because, you produce killer works. I would love to hear. How did this creative journey start for you?
Oh, man. Well, I would say like most, it's like the standard line is that I always like to draw. That's whatever. But I mean, I don't know. When I grew up, Sesame Street had come out a few years before that, and I was obsessed with that as a kid. And I remember just watching that show, and then there was a book that came out after that called The Monster at the End of the Book that featured that. And I was so into, oh man, I was, it was at a perfect time for me to experience that. It came out, because I grew up in the 70s and it had started in 69 is when Sesame Street started. So it was a perfect time, to have that. So that really fueled me as a kid to draw, to draw all the time. And that's something I just always enjoyed doing. So that was my childhood. I mean, moving on from that, when I was in high school, I was the kid that would always draw stuff to fit in, with all the different groups and hey, Mottram, draw me that, or whatever. And I draw, because I didn't really fit in. I didn't belong, in any group as an outsider. So I did that, through high school. And I was still drawing, and people liked what I drew. So that was cool. And then after that, when I was 16, I was still drawing, and I got a job at a grocery store, and I worked there for 8 years. Wow. I worked there through college. I worked there for a long time, and I really didn't think of drawing or illustrating or anything like that for a living. It was just because my father worked on an assembly line. I had thought, okay, what's going to happen is I didn't really plan on going to college. I was like, I'll get through high school and then set myself up, because a lot of the guys that I graduated with were going to work it was at the time it was Packard, which was under GM, and they had an assembly. So my dad worked there for many years, and I saw what these kids were making getting out of high school with these assembly line jobs, and I was like, man, I would be set up nice, when I got out of high school. So I'm like, I'm going to do that, And my dad and my mom they pushed me, they helped push me. They're like, my dad didn't want me doing it. They'll chew you up, man. You'll be working, different. And now I had been working, so I had always had a job, Right. So for me, drawing and illustrating never seemed like it was going to be something I could do for a living. I never thought I could do it. Like that people would pay me to draw. Never. I thought, okay, maybe I could get through this. I could do this. I could always do this for fun. I can always do this because I love doing it. And so I always had that love for it, but I never thought, I could do this. So I was, like I said, I was ready to do that. And my parents talked me out of it, and my dad and my mom were like, you're going to college. They pushed me toward it, So I am so thankful and grateful for them for doing that because, I'd be working. I would probably been one of the guys that the plant closed down, and you lose your, like what happened to my father? He lost his pension. I mean, these companies, wow, you're there for a long time, and if they go bankrupt or something happens, you're left holding the bag. So wow. He didn't want that for me, and he had the foresight to say, nah, man, nah, it's not good. That's not the right path for you. So both my parents they're always very supportive. They always, told me they liked what I drew, so I always had that confidence, they helped me, built me up. So I did that. Ended up going to college for graphic design because they didn't offer an illustration major. It was a graphic design program with an illustration minor. So I was like, okay, maybe, I could get through college with this degree and I could use it. Now the whole time I'm still working. I was working sometimes night shift at the grocery store and, in a warehouse and always, like I said, like having jobs, you think, okay, they're paying me to, do this, bag this, put this on a shelf, price this. Back in the day, we didn't have scans. You had to price every, it was
the price tag.
Yeah. If you had the guns. Yeah, right. So, it was like that, so it was, but yeah, so anyway, I made it through college. It took me longer because I took a year off to work. I didn't have, my parents didn't have the means for me to go.
I'm there with you, man. There with you.
So they're like, you want to make it through? Sorry, man, we can help you to this point, and then you're on your own. You're going to have to come up with the money. So I was like, all right, cool. I was doing it before anyway.
Right.
But I was 16, 17 years old, man. I wasn't saving money before. I was just in as soon as I got it.
You could buy your own stuff.
Exactly. Shoes, everything. So,
right.
So needless to say, I had to start putting that toward where I was going to school, which was, that was fine. I was, right. Worked out. Like I said, I really liked typography when I was in college. I had taken, I don't know, there was something about that I really loved and graphic design actually at the time was just starting to be digital, was crossing a line where it was on the verge of, I think we had Photoshop too. So it was like Photoshop and it was all black. Maybe you could do one layer. I can't even remember, honestly.
It's so long ago.
It was so long ago. It was all black and white. But oh man, I love the typography. And when I was finally getting out, I had got the graphic design professor set us up with these internships. So my first internship was with a park, and it was a state park system. So I was doing trail guides and hiking maps and stuff like that for this park, and then I would do posters. But all that was cut and paste. It was when you did a poster, you cut Rubylith, and then you cut out the shapes, which actually with illustrating was really cool because you're doing everything by hand. You're drawing this. I remember I did this fishing poster, and I drew this giant fish, and I had a blast doing it because it was all hands on, getting your hands dirty and just cutting that, masking that shape out, which, you still do today when you're doing watercolors and things like that. So, so it was cutting out that shape and then, taking it to a silkscreen shop, and then they could run, you pick out your colors. So I enjoyed that. So that was my first job into graphic design.
And what the crazy part is, like, almost down to a T. Every designer never thought that they could draw for a living until, like, either when they're just about to start college or when they're actually into college.
Yeah.
That is, like, the craziest thing to me. Like, none of us thought that, like, we loved drawing. We loved all these cartoons and all this stuff. But for some reason, none of us never thought somebody's actually making this for a living. Like, it's crazy. Like,
it is. It
doesn't
totally
matter how
is.
many shows I do, almost down to a T. Every single person, like later on down, like right when they're about to graduate or when they're in college, that's when they find out. For me, I found out when I was in college that designing for a living, like because I went to school for architecture.
Oh wow!
So I thought, okay, I love to draw. This is like the real job thing to do. Like, I didn't know, like, okay, you can actually do that stuff that you see on TV and all these cool stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah. It is. It is. You just don't, I don't know. It was, I guess it was where I grew up. The way I grew up in a steel town that was just this, all the steel mills were starting to close. So everybody was going, and it was just like, you go to school, you get a job, then you work, and then that's it. Like you make a living for your family. There was no,
the arts.
The arts. Nobody. It just wasn't something that outside of my parents and other, I still had family like, oh, you think you can do that? I was like, no, I don't think I can do it. I really didn't. And I still, it's just one of those things where I guess, I don't know. I don't want to say program, but you see what's around you and
yeah. Unless you get that exposure, you don't really,
right.
You know what I mean? No one is walking up to you and telling you, listen, like you can actually be using your creativity for a living and making all this cool stuff. There's nobody really walking up to tell you, especially at that time.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're not getting that information now. But now, my kid, I can tell her, hey, you want to do this? It's gonna be hard. You're gonna have to put it. It's gonna be it's as hard as any job.
Maybe even harder.
Yeah, right. It's just like anything else. You're gonna have to you're gonna have to grind. You're gonna have to just get a thick skin, learn how to roll with what life's gonna throw at you. Whatever your career is. But yeah, it's just different now. Especially with all the technology. So I'm sorry, getting back to
you're good, man.
Getting back to the whole career path thing. So
first job in graphic design.
Yeah, first job in graphic design. I was still working. At the grocery store, and I was so I was working there, and I was doing my internship, and then I was going to work another job. So I was going to work like 3 jobs. And then I think at the last minute, I ended up just sticking with the park gig. So I did the park gig. And that was like right up until that was before graduation. So leading up until graduation, still had that job. So worked 2 jobs for about a year. Then what's crazy is we're going way back here.
I love it.
We're going back to when internet's the web was just starting, and people were building these awful websites that just like we
thought were amazing.
We thought this thing could blank on a black background and look cool. So, I got in with the company that was doing graphics for websites, and this is cool. This is no more. I wasn't doing anything with illustration. It was all just working on the front end of whatever the site would be, and so I ended up doing that for a while. For like a year and a half, and then I moved up to Cleveland. Got a job up in Cleveland because I grew up about an hour and a half away from there to the south.
Okay.
Between Pittsburgh and Cleveland. So I ended up getting a job up in Cleveland with an agency. Sweet. And I worked up there. That was really cool. But it was, and things were evolving. The web was evolving. Right. There was still a job for people designing websites and for people before it became, what it is now, where they just have a system where you can, but then, you were creating the layout for the page and everything like that. Right. Exactly. So, and then that, and then intermittently I would get logo jobs and jobs to, do identity and things like that. So yeah, it was cool, and I did that I was bounced around from agencies for like, and the whole time I'm not drawing. This is like, I'm not drawing at all. I hadn't picked up for about, I'd say 10 years, just wasn't, because I thought I love doing this, but I don't have the confidence or my skill level I wasn't happy with it. Wow. So I felt, okay, I'll keep doing this, and this is cool. I'm enjoying doing this. And, you'd get home from doing your creative, your job all day, and you don't want to, your time is, you just want to chill. You want to just watch TV, whatever, and just not dwell on it, to create, draw things. So drawing things would be sparse for me. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know, I started doing it. I started drawing again after all that time. And I was like, man, I just thought I would look, and this is back then. This is before Instagram and Twitter and everything else. Would look at artists, because they'd have these books of artists where they would pitch to the agencies, hey, I'm an illustrator. This is a style I do. So I would look at these books, because the agency I was working at would have them. I'd be just like, man, I'm nowhere near this. My skill level is it would take me a long time to get, but I dove in. Mm-hmm. And, my wife was very supportive. She was, you could do this. She was awesome at it. So I ended up doing that for a couple of years, just trying to get better, trying to, practicing drawing a lot more, just doing a lot more like collage type stuff. But anyway, I was doing all that, and it had come to a point where working at the agency, I saw that my heart, I wasn't passionate about it. I just didn't have the desire. It was like, I enjoyed it. It was a paycheck, but it wasn't. So I started going back to drawing, and then other designers and a couple other people, hey, that's cool. Wow. You drew that. That's, they would comment on it. And then I would get a little bit more confidence. And I started doing that a little bit more and more, and finally got to a point where I finally thought I could go and freelance and do freelance illustration. Mm. So at the time there were things like Dribble. There were things like different networks that people were having to put, their illustrations out. I had gotten good feedback on some of those outlets. So I thought, can I push this far enough that I can make a living at it? That I can find, that I can pursue illustration. So I rolled the dice and I went out. I was working at we had just had my daughter. So I was working at the agency 4 days a week anyway. Right. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to transition. I'm going to try. And that's a scary time. Your kid's baby, you're like, and it was very intimidating to try. You know, my wife had a good job, but still, you know, it was very intimidating to go out and do it on my own. I was scared. I was very nervous about it. And the first year was very hard. I'm not going to lie. Didn't have far and few between. Then I was approached by a company in California who was doing children's learning applications. They liked my work, and they're like, hey, would you like to come and work for us? So I ended up getting a job with them. It was all illustration. It was great. I worked there for a while, and then they became Khan Academy. So Khan Academy bought the company I was with. So I ended up, you know, that was great. So I was still able to freelance, and I had this stable job, stable income. Then I was working, I was working full time at first, and then that I gradually transitioned out to part time. So, and working part time and freelancing on the other side. So, yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it's been a long journey, and but I'm very happy where I'm at now. I've done a couple books. I have an agent now. It's really cool. It's just like I said, I didn't think I'd get here. It took me a lot longer than most people. I'm sure it did, because, you know, I'm almost 50 now, and I'm like, I didn't even do my first children's book until I was 44. Yeah. So, you know, everybody's got a different path, and you can't have a set timetable, because everyone's different, and everyone has their own journey and environment that they have to grow through and live through. So mine, I guess you'd call me late to the party, always late to the party, because that's just how it's been, you know. So, but like I said, I'm cool with that. If I tried to do this when I was in my 20s, would have been a disaster.
Dude, I mean, that is just like an awesome story, man, because it's just like,
Thanks.
It shows like sometimes you just take a different course.
Yeah.
It shows that like life happens, and you know what I mean?
Right.
You go down different paths. But it also shows just like it's never too late.
No, it isn't. And there's always this, I see it a lot there's so much comparison that goes on nowadays, and you really can't. I fall in, look, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't fall into that trap. I fall into that trap every time I go on Instagram or Twitter, and I'm never going to.
Like, you see, and this is one of the things that I love about all of this. Like, when you start hearing everyone's perspective, because all you're looking at is what someone puts out. You see their feed, and then like I see David's feed, and I'm like, man, this dude is amazing. He's an amazing illustrator. Like, I'll never get there. And he's like seeing someone else's feed, and he's like, oh man, this dude is amazing. I'll never get there. And it's just like it's just roundabout circle. And at the end of the day, like, we're all going through the same thing. We're all
That's right.
It's just so
right on.
It's so true, man. It's
crazy. so true. You're absolutely right. It's just, you know, and not only that, you're seeing is, I don't want to say it, you're not seeing all the bad drawings.
Right.
I don't put up all my horrible drawings and my horrible, like, I have tons of sketchbooks that are filled with garbage drawings that I'm afraid to show anybody.
Right.
You know, people are putting that up, but I guarantee you there might, you know, not everybody is, I want to say they're working hard to put up the stuff that they're putting up, or there's iterations that go into putting up what they're putting up. You know, they're working through it, you know, and that's true with me. I'll draw something one time and be like, let's improve this. Let's get it better. Let's get it better, you know, or what am I doing wrong? And so, yeah, I think you have to take that into consideration. Someone's showing you a lot of times their finished product, and what's going into all that is a lot. Hopefully there's a lot of failures. Hopefully there's a lot of missteps, because that is all part of getting better and growing. Right. You got to have those, a lot of failure. You need it to improve. So I think that's really important.
I love it.
But we don't see it.
I love it.
We don't see it as much.
So who were some of the people that you would say you kind of build your support system around?
Definitely my parents were great. My wife is awesome. She's really been supportive through everything. And now my daughter is, my daughter's been great. She's been encouraging, and she's been inspirational into seeing her creativity, which is really cool seeing a kid's creativity kind of fuels you. Right. So you see that, and you're like, man, let go, dude. Like, just be a kid again.
Right.
Look at what she's doing. Look at how loose she is. She doesn't care. Be like that, So that's that would be my sister's great. I am really fortunate to have a great family. My sister has always been very supportive, and my nieces and nephews. So yeah, I'm
that's
very
awesome,
grateful.
Man. That's awesome. Yeah. So, what would you say was like the hardest thing you had to go through this process?
Through the whole process was probably just making the jump, going out on my own. It's probably the hardest, that was probably the scariest and the hardest. It was at a time when I had known better from past experiences to save some money before I jumped out. And before I should say jumped out, but before I went freelance, I socked money away, because I'm like, it's not always, there's going to be periods where it's going to be thin. So, and when you're first starting, you should have, it's good to have that in place, because it is, you're finding work, and you're dedicating yourself to finding that work for a while before you start landing.
Your job is to find work when you first start out.
That's right. Yep. Yep.
Oh, that's crazy.
It sure is. Yep. That's what you're doing. You're looking for that, and whatever you got to do, got to. So
that's cool, man. That is like so cool. All right, so I know you hinted on some of it, but what are some of the ways you kind of generate revenue? Like now you're on your own doing your thing.
So I have my part-time job right now, which has been great.
And that's 100% remote, right?
Yeah, that's remote. Right. That's remote. And then I have a shop. I've been going back and forth on this, on getting, selling prints of things and getting a printer and things like that, and pursuing that more. The other half has been kid lit and children's books. So I have an agent that I've done books through. So that's been great.
Awesome.
It's kind of a marathon working on a children's book, but it's like the payoff is right. The payoff is pretty cool when you finally get there. It's just you work through it, So yeah, it was cool.
I did 2 children's books, and man, that was like telling me, bro, it pays well. Those projects pay well. It pays very well, but my gosh, I'm like, am I supposed to be an illustrator? Oh my gosh, maybe not, because oh my gosh, the process is so long.
It's a long process, and you have to map out, okay, what am I going to make? What am I going to make on this book, and map it out? Because if you're mapping it out over a long period of time, you could be making very little per, right. That's why no one does it. I don't think anybody should or does do it hourly. I think you want to have that amount, and then you have royalties and things like that
right.
If they can help you out with. But yeah, no, I hear you. It's a long process, and I would love to have more time. I'd love to have, if it's like, give me 3 years.
Like, dude, like, come on, give me some time. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's never, that's the thing. That's one of my struggles, is I always want to go back and just
and it's always after you finish it, you get a little break. It's always calling you back. Always calling you back.
You want to?
They pay well. Those projects pay well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They do.
Pay well.
They do pay well, and they're like I said, the payoff is great.
Right.
When you see when they're in schools and teachers read, that's great.
That's true. So, and so we have the shop, we have the children's book, we have the part-time job. Is that like 3 ways that you kind of generate revenue?
Yeah. I haven't done an author illustrator book where I've written the book and
also illustrated it.
So that would be a goal. That would be one of my goals, is to do that next. I haven't done that yet. So that's another possible, way of doing that. Is a lot of work as well.
Yeah, because you got to write the book.
You have to write the book, which is, oh my gosh, talk about intimidating. That's like a mountain to me right now. But that, and then promoting the book.
Yeah.
And doing a book tour or something to help.
Yeah, because you're always promoting the book before and after it's out. You're always promoting the book.
Yes, that's right. Before you want the pre-sale is huge, because you got to push. Oh, this is coming out like in April, and you're already, like, hey, this is what I'm working. This book's going to be out then, and now you can pre-order books a lot.
And one thing, like a few authors that I've had on the podcast, they tell me like how you get a New York Times bestseller is the pre-sale, because they count all those pre-sales on the day it actually comes out.
That's right.
It's not after it comes out. It's the pre-sales. That's how you get New York Times bestseller. And I was like, that is crazy. Like, you never think about it. You think like, okay, I just, after it comes out, I'll sell these books. But it's actually, they count the pre-sales all on that one day it comes out.
Yeah. Isn't that nuts? I mean, you are pushing that thing as soon as you finish it, you're like, or you're figuring out, hey, do I need to do a book trailer for this?
Right. You got to figure out something to kind of generate.
Yeah. Now, if you're a big name, it's helps.
Easier. Yes.
Oh, sure. If you have a big name, you can, that's going to help you tremendously, because then you already got a big reach on whatever social, whatever you're using,
Right.
So you have that reach. I would call it a pre-reach,
right?
Because you got reach that reach ahead of time, So
it's funny. It's those things you gotta like know beforehand when you're going through all these ventures. You know what I mean? Because it kind of helps. It gives you a leg up, because then you'll know the ins and outs of these things. Because you're pretty familiar with that. So yeah.
But I didn't. But a lot of that stuff I didn't know at first, and like you said, I had no idea what went into doing a children's. Like the first one I did was terrifying, because I had I knew I had a set amount of time to do it, but it was just like overwhelming. Like, I'm going to do all these pages that need to tell this story, and they need to, or spreads. And when the first one I did was it was a learning process. Thanks. Doing storyboards and coming up with how the story is going to flow, and just, everything. So, once you do, I think you need to do a couple, and then you're like,
still need a couple more to kind of eat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can't. You just keep going. You learn more every time.
That is so true. That is so true. That is so true. All right, so let's jump into some questions.
Sure.
What is the first hour of David's day like?
Oh man, first hour is I get up, I get my daughter's breakfast ready. Nice. I have my coffee ready to go. I gotta have that ready to go. Before I do anything, the coffee's ready. It's brewing. So that's going, and then I get her stuff ready, take her to the bus stop. I come back, I do a little bit of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Nice. Sweet.
I do that.
You guys learned something new about David today.
just a little bit is like I have to limit myself, because if not, I'll just
you end up by
stop.
the end of the day.
Yep. I put on, so I'll put on like, I'll have the news or Sports Center on or something like that. And then I'll do that for about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. Then I dive in. Then I'm ready to go. I feel like it's like a warm up or something,
Nice.
like doing that. Now, what I should be doing and what I used to do is I would do a sketch every morning. I don't know why that game really, I blame that game. That game is responsible for, but it's my discipline too. But anyway, I was doing that every morning, and it was cool. It was like this meditative time where it's just, it's just quiet in the house. And I've just finished my first cup of coffee, and I'm ready, I'm like ready to go. So I need to get back to that. But anyway, that's like my first hour is just getting into the groove. And then, so
Sweet.
My days are pretty long. So, I figure it's good to just slowly get into it,
Nice,
so.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So what is that thing that you can't live without that's not your phone?
Coffee.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a food, right? Can it be a food, or
it could be
it
anything? Trust me, bro.
Okay.
I've gotten a blanket. I've got. It could be anything. Just leave it at that.
Okay. Because second would be snacks.
Sweet. Yeah, man, gotta have them snacks. What's your favorite snack?
Oh,
Top
I would
three.
say top. Oh man, just a little bit of Reese's, like a Reese's cup, like just a one or two, like the minis.
Yeah.
And sometimes just chips, just general potato chips, flat,
Nice.
straight up, plain, old, greasy, bad for you potato chips, and maybe what else? Just nacho chips.
Nice.
Big time.
That's a good collection right there. Good collection.
Yeah,
They may not be healthy for you, but it sure is good.
Sure is. And you're hitting that 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock before lunch. All I'm thinking about is lunch. I need something. I gotta have a snack right now. It's 10:30.
Dude, as soon as we get off this call, I will be snacking. So hey, don't feel any way, bro.
Oh, you know what? You got me thinking about it too. So I might be doing that too. I might be diving into some nachos.
Oh, sweet. All right, so that's a book recommendation. Any books that you like to recommend?
Yeah, I have a list. I mostly get art books. So have kind of a problem with those where I've slowed down recently, but there was a while when I was going I wanted to have all the art books and had to slow myself down. But so I have one of the books that I have that I've always loved is called Drawn to Life by Walt Stanchfield, who was a Disney animator. And it's really about, it's about animation, but it's kind of a philosophy book on how you see the world and how you should, as an artist, how artists see the world. And just, it's so good. It's so inspiring.
Yeah, I've heard of him. Never read the book, though.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great book. It's just, like I said, I think it applies to anyone could read that book in any field and get something out of it. It's just it's very inspiring, just to and how things move. How, these guys were geniuses on how they animated and how they brought things to life. And they looked, and the way they looked at things, in that book is just, it's amazing. So yeah, I would recommend that book. I have The Art of the Dam Keeper by Tonko House, which is excellent. I have another book called How to Draw by Scott Robertson, which is really about perspective and how, that is a word that was cringeworthy, where I'd be like, oh God, I got to think about vanishing points. And, if you think about it's so important. It's so crucial to have that perspective down. So you're drawing things right.
Right.
And I hadn't done that, for a long time. I kind of squeaked by, so I needed to just suck it up and just, look at the book, read this book and learn more about perspective, 2D, 1.3 point, how, and looking at things from different angles. So it's so important. And when you're telling a story, to mix those perspectives up as well. So that, and then I have, my last one is The Art of Spirited Away, which is a beautiful book.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's about it's just a gorgeous book about that animated movie, which is just blows me away. So it's a very inspiring book. A lot of watercolors and the concept art that went into making that movie, and Miyazaki. Yeah, so it's it's the art of Miyazaki. Spirited Away is what it, but I just call it The Art of Spirited Away. But yeah, this book is just.
I love that cover.
Oh man,
and the
it's
way
just,
how the rest of it is just so clean.
Like all the concept work, the watercolors that they put into the concept work, and just everything, the way that movie flows. That's one of those movies that I saw that I don't know. There's a few movies that I've ever seen that actually give you a mood, like you walk with like this mood or this feeling, and that's one of those movies, man, where I'm just after I see it or watch it, which is been a million times, it just has an impact. So it's a great book.
Sweet.
So yeah.
Sweet. All right. So what is next for Dave?
I think what's next is trying to author, illustrate a book. I did a little bit with animation, but learning more about that. Now I'm taking classes. I take classes through Schoolism, which is great. So for me, it's just constantly learning new things, trying to, like I said, I love, like, even the perspective thing, as painful as that was initially, it's really cool to dive in and see, okay, this is how this works. This is how you've been drawing it. And this is how this, actually works. So for me, that's just just taking these classes. That's the next thing for me. Like I said, just like I said, an author illustrator book would be great. I see that as being way down the road for me because honestly, I feel like I need to learn how to write. So that's another thing I need to learn. I really need to learn to do. So, but like I said, I enjoy taking these classes. I took a class on recently on character design for movies and film, which was really, really great learning experience.
The whole construction of the character and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's one I'm taking now about narrative. It's about, I think, character design and a narrative. Yeah. So, but yeah, those have been great. Those have been great classes. So
That's sweet.
But I guess it would just be those things. So
that's awesome, man. And as I said, like, you have an amazing story, man. Can't wait to share this.
Thank you.
It's just very inspiring to just kind of like, you just never know, man. You just never know.
No, you don't. You don't. Everybody. Yeah. You never know. And it's everybody's, like I said, everybody's got their own journey, and you can't, to compare yours to someone else that is putting up work, it's great to be inspired by them. But I mean, I hear people talking about, their midlife crisis in their 30s and everything. I'm just like, dude, I'm almost 50. I understand where you're coming from. I was there, I know what that's like but stop comparing yourself. I don't know.
All right, so as we're getting ready to close, where can people go to find you, learn more about what you're doing?
DaveMottram.com is my website. My handle is dmott70 on Instagram and Twitter. I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. I don't think I really... I used to have, I don't have a Tumblr site. I used to, I don't have that. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Sweet. Dig it. Well, dude, I mean, this has been amazing. Thank you for just pouring your heart out, sharing your story, man. This has just been amazing, man.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for, it's just great to talk shop and be able to talk to another artist. So thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Before you go, just what advice would you have for any creative out there?
I would just say not to take yourself too seriously, but take your work really seriously. Take your work, what you're doing with, when you're creating something, learning the process, learning things about it. That's all so important. It's to constantly keep learning. You're never going to figure it all out. But part of that is, part of that journey is learning something new that, to me, that fuels the creativity. You're learning something new and then you apply it. It's great. So I would say really just never stop learning and don't take yourself seriously, because, it's just, that's how I see it. So
sweet. Yeah. This has been awesome. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you,
man. Good stuff, man. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. This has been great.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope it's been super valuable to you, and you're now ready to take your audience building, your community growing to the next level to help you and help me build our empire, for lack of a better word, or just to build our thing. Remember to stop by iTunes, Passion Behind the Art, and leave a review and subscribe. It's very important to me. It helps the podcast grow, and it makes me feel good to kind of hear from you guys, to know what you like about this podcast, what it's done for you. So jump on iTunes and subscribe and leave a review. Passion Behind the Art. Be blessed.